Hey everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Try Again with Jen. I'm your host, Jennifer Brew, and I'm so glad you're here. This podcast is a space where I share my personal experience with fibroids, the good, the bad, the ugly, the trials and errors, and the darkness that I went through going through this health issue. And honestly, I just felt completely alone. Even though statistics say 20 to 50% of women out there have uterine fibroids, could you believe I had not met a woman in person in real life have a fibroid? I mean, I had loved ones tell me all the time, like if they had an appointment or they were like in the ER, they're like, "Oh, I met another woman that she was sharing with me. She had fibroids, and she reminded me of you, the symptoms, and this, that, and the third." And ironically, I did not meet not one. But in the start of my journey to almost like the very end, it felt really completely alone. Like I was completely lost. I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea if I was getting the right treatment. A lot of it was just trial and error and just figuring out along the lines. Like I was completely lost. Um, and I didn't know what to do, even though there's so many information out there, going to Google, going to my doctors, asking other women and help and going online. I still felt alone. Um, and that's why I created this space. I could only imagine there's women out there going through this same issue and you feel completely lost or you're completely scared. You're like, you don't know what's, you know, to come or what's ahead of you in this journey because it's different for every woman because every woman's body is different, reacts different. The symptoms might be different, but it doesn't change, feeling alone, maybe not having a community, another woman next to you saying she's going to similar or the exact same thing to kind of give you like a blueprint what to expect and kind of like what's ahead. Kind of like what to expect, how to feel and what this looks like, moving forward. So that's why I created this space. But before I go more in detail with my journey, I want to share a quick disclaimer. I am not a medical professional. I'm not giving any medical advice. I am just strictly sharing my personal experience or sharing like general knowledge. What is fibroids? Please do your own research. Please seek medical professional um, people, like your doctors, reach out to your doctors for proper diagnosis, medical advice. You seek their help, not mine's. This is just, like I said, space to share my experience for you in hopes that you feel less alone. For the protection of my privacy and others, I will be nicknaming doctors, hospitals, and clinics as animals, shapes, or colors. So, in case you're wondering if you were newly diagnosed or you've heard the word before and you're like, I don't know what that is. Basically, a fibroid is non cancerous growth that develop in the uterus. There are four kinds. I'm not going to bore you with the medical terms of all four. That's like another thing I hated. I know, sure, like everything has a medical proper term, but these words, they're like tongue twisters. I'm always tripping on them and they could get confusing, intimidating, and scary. Like I remember when my doctor's like, "This is what you have." It sounded very scary. Like I have submucosal fibroids. I'm like, "Ooh, it makes it extra scary." So basically, the four types is you have one that grows at the wall of the uterus. The submucosal, the one that I had, is the growth in the lining of the uterus. You could get ones that grow in the outer surface of the uterus, or some women have them hang from the uterus on like the stalk part of the uterus. Depending where they're located, honestly depends on your symptoms. So your symptoms could look different for everyone. Of course, the main one is heavy periods, uh, painful intercourse, abdominal discomfort, pelvic pain, lower back pain, frequent urination. So these symptoms are just common like known symptoms when women bring it up that they're like, maybe, doctors could be like, maybe it's fibroids. Again, it all depends. Your symptoms will mostly depend where's the fibroid located and like how big are fibroids. So how do you get diagnosed for it? So there's several ways from pelvic and transvaginal ultrasound. You could get one or the other. I actually got both. That's how I got diagnosed by my OBGYN, through the pelvic and the transvaginal ultrasound. It could be diagnosed through the MRI as well, or there's also an X-ray that they can see an X-ray of your uterus and fallopian tubes as well. So there's different ways to for the doctors to see if you have fibroids, and each of those that I listed will show where the fibroids are located and the size of it. And if you're wondering, like, how are they treated? Again, it all depends on your symptoms, depends, like I said, the location, your discomfort. So for me, in the beginning of my journey was birth control. I didn't really like, I had normal cramp pain, but it wasn't something that was debilitating. It wasn't something where I was concerned with. I was like, I'm okay with, an ibuprofen, call it a day. Like, I was fine. Like, the pain wasn't excruciating in the beginning. What concerned me to go to my OBGYN, that I was like, something off, and why she forward for me to take the pelvic and the transvaginal ultrasound, was my heavy flow was no longer its quote unquote normal heavy flow. I always had irregular heavy menstrual cycles, but my concern was, when I'm on my heavy flow, I will have it for about 2 or 3 days tops, was my normal. And when I had a heavy flow, I would use, the always, this is, I'm not sponsored by them. This was just what I use, what I'm comfortable with. I always used pads. I used the always heavy pads, and I noticed I was filling, it will fill up with menses within almost an hour mark, instead of my normal every 2 3 hours I'm changing the pad. And then what really was like a red flag to me, I was like, wait, something's wrong. I was noticing in the beginning I was having big blood clots. I always had clots before. They're normal if they're like the size of like the penny or a dime, I believe. I noticed they were half the size of my palm, and they were coming out frequently. That's when I got a bit nervous. I was like, something's wrong. Something, this is not normal. And I remember going to my OBGYN and explaining to her what it looked like and telling her my symptoms, and that's why she has sent me to do the ultrasounds. And then, when they came back, she confirmed I had fibroids. Also, what causes fibroids? Believe it or not, even though we're in modern medicine, there is no scientific proof at the moment of the root cause of fibroids. It's completely unknown. And I think that sucks. Like, it really sucks not knowing the root cause of fibroids. Um, when I go back reading medical journals and asking doctors, they just have a list like who's at risk. It could be, genes, like what's your family history, obesity, things along those lines, what you eat maybe, but there's no like main cause. Like, there, like when I was looking through medical journals and asking doctors, actually my OB/GYNs, there's no known root cause what causes fibroids. And going back to like family history, and I felt alone because, I mean, I am grateful. I don't wish this upon nobody. Nobody in my family has fibroids. Not my mom, not my sister. So it was a bummer. Like, at least understanding, like, oh, like if it was genetic, like let's say if my grandmother or my mom had it, then I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But the fact that they did not, excuse me, I felt more of like lost. I was like, why me? Why I gotta be the oddball here? And it was a learning curve for all of us, not just me, but also my my mother, my sister, and they were super supportive. So even though I did have a great, circle of support from loved ones to friends, and I had therapy and great doctors, I did feel alone a lot emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. If honestly, it felt like a spiritual warfare every damn day in my mind and in my heart, because my body was literally wreaking havoc in my daily life. It was affecting everything from my, like I said, my mental health, even showing up to do basic things, errands, chores, show up for friends, show up for myself, show up for work. It was really bad. I had very dark moments mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, because how hard it was and how alone I felt. Even though online I would see all these videos, women talking about it, talking about what they went through with their surgeries, or what medication, or how she cured it, quote unquote, through foods or teas, I felt alone. And then if it didn't work, I would sit there like, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with my body? This is so messed up. There were moments, even though I have God in my heart, there were moments I was cussing out God left and right. Like, why is this happening to me? It felt personal. I was like, Lord, why is this happening? I mean, I was a brat at times, and there were times God really showed up for me in this hard journey, which I appreciate. And like I said, I was blessed to have such a great support with my loved ones and friends that were so understanding during this long, several years journey. And I sat there, I was like, you know what? How many women are suffering in silence like I did? Because when I started opening up that I had fibroids, I had surgery, and I recovered and I came on the other side, people were shocked. They're like, what? What do you mean? Oh my gosh. I'm like, yeah, I was going through this, but I was hiding it because, not only is it, it's personal, like, nobody want to talk about that. And it's like, how do you explain that to people where at one point of this journey, the last, I would say, four, like, yeah, going on 4, almost 5 years that I had fibroids. I had it longer, but the last 5 years till I got surgery, it was so bad. I was literally menstruating every day. Like, it wasn't stopping, and it was heavy. Like I said, with the clots, everything. And it was horrible. I felt like I was just bleeding to death, basically. That's what it felt like. Like, my life was just dying. It felt like and I mean my life, not literally. I wasn't dying literally. I meant like in a figurative way, where my normalcy of life, like showing up for friends and showing up for myself and loved ones, and doing what I love doing, which was like writing. I love doing open mics. I freelance writing about exhibitions here in the city. I couldn't do things that brought me joy because how much I was bleeding, how much it was affecting my physical health and my mental health. So I couldn't do the basic necessities as well. It was really hindering my life. And that's why I was so back and forth with God and doctors, and it was really hard. It was really, there were moments were super scary, and there were so moments I was giving up. I wanted to give up. I know there were moments I did give up, and it felt like no way in sight. No, it didn't feel like a light at the end of the tunnel. It just felt like darkness, and I was like, it's just my life. That's it. As dark as that sound, but I think that's why I named this podcast Try Again, because healing deserves another try. I'm glad I kept showing up. Half the battle is just showing up and trying again. Um and that's what this is. It's about getting up and trying again, and God, my loved ones, doctors help me try again, get up and try again, and this is where I'm at on the other side. But my heart goes out to women who are going through this. Like, I've been there. I'm going through it, and it's not easy. And women, I swear, yeah, we're all warriors. To the fact to be bleeding like that, to be in excruciating pain, and your body physically weak because of all the blood you're losing. So you could be, losing a lot of iron. You could be in excruciating pain and you're still showing up for your family, for yourself, for work, your kids, like that's hard, and that takes a lot of strength and courage to do that. It really does. And that's why I was so strong about I need to make a podcast, not only sharing my experience that I hope women out there feel less alone, but a reminder like we need to try again. Things need to be better, even in the medical field. I wish there was answers, like a root cause. And I'm hoping there's more help. I hope there's more preventative care out there. I hope women are getting the medical, emotional, spiritual care that they need going through this because it is so hard. It truly is. But thank you so much for tuning in. Next time, I will be going in depth how I got diagnosed. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, comment, and share. Again, you are not alone. I would love to hear back from you, ladies, as well. If you want to share your stories, if you got questions or topics you want me to cover it during my fibroid journey. Um, I know I'm saying it as past tense because I had surgery, but it came back. I still have fibroids, so in a sense, I'm still going through my fibroid journey. But again, thank you so much for being a part of this community, and we will talk soon.